Welcome to Innovators Unscripted, the podcast for innovators by innovators. Today, Tina and I are seriously fangirling because we are joined by the one and only Abid Patel, who is a truly inspirational global Google innovator and is joining us in the middle of the night in the UK. So, Abid, thank you so much for being here tonight. And I'm wondering if you can just start off by giving us and our listeners a brief introduction.
Thank you very much, Liz and Tina. It's great to be here with you. And yep, everyone who knows me will know that I'm a proper night owl. So this is when this is when it comes to life for me for sure. But yes, I'm Abid Patel. I am a Google certified trainer and innovator. Former GEG leader as well for GEG UK and one of the founders for Global GEG. And I'm now an IT consultant, and I support schools and organizations around the UK and beyond with everything digital transformation, cybersecurity, digital strategy. If we used to say in IT, if it has a plug, it's my responsibility. Now it's pretty much, if it's a platform, if it sits in the cloud, it's my responsibility. Yeah, that's my day to day.
Wow, you really summed it up. You do so many things, and just your brief introduction is already so exciting, and we're going to get into it. But before we really get into all of those amazing accomplishments and all the things you have going on, we like to start with a little icebreaker of a browser tab confessional, because we know that innovators are notorious multitaskers. So before you hopped on, or even while you're on, how many tabs do you currently have open? And will you share with us maybe one that's unexpected?
I wasn't expecting this sharing the unexpected because I am a minimalist guy. I have no tabs open at all. I
Wow.
except for the document for this episode, but otherwise, no. I close down my tabs every time I have this discussion with educators. Like, oh, I've got 64 tabs open. I've got 138 tabs. No, I'm not. I just don't like it. I'm that guy when I open my phone. If there's a notification badge, I have to open that. Even if I don't address the notification, I just need to get rid of the badge. And a few years ago, we did a session on inbox zero, getting your
Yep.
Gmail inbox down to zero. And ever since then, I've been a zero minimalist guy. Like, my desk setup is minimalistic. My tab browsers are minimalistic. No, I'm not. So I haven't quite got an exciting tab for you, but yeah, for sure. I guess probably my most used tab nowadays is LinkedIn. That's where kind of I guess everyone in recent few years has deviated towards building that sort of what used to be the edu Twitter community is now the edu LinkedIn community, albeit it doesn't kind of roll off the tongue a bit more, but that's probably my most visited tab. But yeah, um, total minimalism on my side.
I wonder if that's because you come from that space of being like IT. So like all of my devices run great because I don't bombard them with a whole bunch of ridiculous things, right? Oh, okay, I'm already intrigued to hear your perspective on things. So I let's go through the innovators and hopping back on our time machine, so to speak. I think you're one of our first podcasters who is from a different country. Is that correct, Liz? Right? So London, 2019. And I think there's a couple of fun aspects we can talk about is number one, that was right before the world shifted in a huge major way, which was the idea of COVID, which you didn't see coming at 2019, right? But that I don't know if that ended up leading to the whole global GEG work. I think you have a very fascinating story with that. So tell us a little bit about where the Innovator Challenge was or what was happening with you at that time. What brought you to London 2019?
My story is a very, very interesting one when I look back at it right now. I was people, more people stateside especially know me since Innovator and since Global GEG, I knew very few people. In fact, before Innovator, I didn't know anyone in EdTech outside of London. Like, the world was a very small place in that sense. And especially working in IT, I've always said working in IT in schools is a very lonely place because, you know, I fashioned the term for where I used to live in school. So I had when I started at the school that I just finished at after 11 years, the day I started, I walked in as the new IT manager, and they'd never had an IT manager in their school before. And I said, "So I'm here. I'm now permanent. I'm going to be here every day. Where do I sit?" And they said, "Yeah, you know what? We don't have a space." And I said, "Well, I can't just work out of nowhere if I'm going to be here every day." And so the deputy head teacher at the time, who was my line manager, she says, "Let me have a think, and I'll come back to you." After lunch, she said, "Abid, come with me," with huge enthusiasm. And so she took me to the part of the school where the lights weren't even working, right? Where no one used to go. And she showed me a cupboard and she said to me, "Ta-da!" And I looked, and the cupboard had literally like had it was a primary elementary school, so they had like kids' toys in the cupboard, and the toys were literally spitting out. And she said to me, like I said, this is a lovely store cupboard. Where's my office? And she's like, "No, no, no, this is the office." I'm like, "Okay." And so the cupboard became my office, and then I thought, I'm going to roll with this now, right? This is not just the cupboard. This is cupboard HQ. This is the headquarters of where the magic happens, sort of thing. And for a long time, it was like that was my world, right? And there was no cross collaboration with anyone IT wise. There's schools 5 minutes down the road, and it's like you try to get in touch with the IT department. Nope, not having it. No, we don't speak to others, sort of thing. And it was, I without knowing it, I was looking for community. I was looking for to connect with people and things like that. My big story was in 2017, we had a flood in one of our schools in the server room that killed the server. And so then, when it came to doing the disaster recovery, which I'd never done before, it was like, look, we can't afford to replace a server. And so we should look at one of these new platforms. And so you've got Microsoft, who have got something called Live at EDU. And then you've got Google, who've got this thing called Google Apps for Education. And instantly everyone was like, "Yeah, we do Microsoft, right? Because that's what we all do." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, fair enough, that makes sense." And so we had the meeting, and it was kind of like, "Okay, right, we're doing Microsoft then." And so then I spent the next year going to loads and loads of conferences, and that's another running joke where it was kind of like, "Is Abid ever in the office?" Because we just see him at every single conference.
Have you ever in the
And
cupboard?
when I would speak to the vendors, I'm like, "Do you support Microsoft Live at EDU? What became of Office 365?" And they're like, "No, no, no, but we do support Google Apps for Education." It's like, why is everyone supporting Google Apps for Education? It's like, you know, really and truly, is everyone going to dump Microsoft and move to Google? Come on, that's never going to happen, right? And in the end, at the end of that year, we hadn't implemented it. We were still going through like the pilot phase and things like that. And I just turned around and thought, I don't want to be alone in this, where I'm leading the charge of going Microsoft when all of the vendors at the time were like full steam ahead with Google. And it was kind of like, no, you know what? We need to go Google Apps for Education. Like that's the way everyone seems to be heading. And so that's when we made the move. And then that's when I put on LinkedIn and Twitter that, oh, I've taken my trust of schools fully into the cloud, dumped all of our data on site, put it fully in the cloud. And that's when Google started to take notice. And they're like, "We'd love you to come to the Google HQ and talk about what you've done and stuff like that." And for me, that was just like, what? really? Like, I'm just the guy in the cupboard. Like, why do you want to hear what I've got to say about what we did? Like, it's nothing fascinating. I just copied the files from from one computer and put them into the cloud. Like, what's so fascinating about that? And so that's how kind of my relationship with Google started. And then it was at the Bet Show in 2019 when Dean Stokes, who was one of the Google leads in the UK at the time, said to me, "Hey, and I'd known Dean for quite a few years by that point, and he was like, "Hey, are you going to be applying for Innovator this year in London?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "That's teacher stuff, isn't it? Like, I'm not a teacher. Like, uh, and he's like, "Look, you are level one and two certified, aren't you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I don't do that. That's not for me. That's teacher stuff." He's like, "Go home right now and do the exams." I'm like, "But I haven't prepared for it." He's like, "You of all people need to go home and just sit the exam. There's no preparation for you." And at that point, I was so afraid of doing exams. I was so afraid. I hadn't done exams since 2004, and that was like 2019 by that point. And I went and did what I recommend no one ever does. I went and read the Teacher Center, the Google Teacher Center from A to Z. It was something like 90 hours of reading that I did because I was so afraid of these exams. And so did the exams, I passed, and that's when I put the application in for Innovator. And even then, I still wasn't going to do it. And it was a couple of friends of mine in within London who were within that small community we had that I'd met at Google who were like, "Oh, are you applying for Innovator?" Because I am. I'm like, "Well, if you guys are applying, then I guess I'll apply then." And that's how that journey kind of started. And I wasn't prepared for what was going to what was going to happen because I guess what's interesting is the people who apply for Innovator today, you can see there's that huge vibrant community of the innovators of the past, and there are still innovators of the past from before I did it, but I wasn't in contact with any of them. And I genuinely went into the Innovator Academy not knowing anything about the program. I didn't know what the words design thinking were. I'd never heard of it before. I'm sure everyone probably at some point that you speak to on your podcast will say imposter syndrome. Like I had imposter syndrome, but I didn't know what imposter syndrome was. I'd never heard of the phrase imposter syndrome either. In my academy, we had the 36 people in the academy. It was
Wow.
me and Dave Leonard who were the two non-teacher people. And I didn't know Dave before Innovators. I'm walking in as far as I was concerned, into a room full of teachers, and I'm like, I'm the guy who changes the toner cartridges. Like, what am I doing here?
So how did you frame your challenge then if you like weren't a teacher? Was it very IT focused or what was your like what was on your application then?
So my challenge, my how might we was how might we make digital transformation accessible to everyone, everywhere, and on any budget? And it was very much because that's effectively what I had to do. I feel like in the 21 years of my career, the same thing I've been told by senior leaders has always been, we've got no money, but we need you to perform magic, right? And it's always been a case of trying to find innovative solutions to a problem. And I would say, probably looking back, that's not the way to do it. And you have to fight your cause for why you need to invest properly in IT. I say nowadays, really and truly, the way the world has evolved with IT, you have to invest in IT. And there's a lot more argument for the realization as to why we need to invest. Back then there wasn't. And so for me, it was very much a case. I would go to most of these Google events prior to Innovator, and I'd be in a room full of teachers and I'd be talking, and the teachers would come to me and say, Abid, we need an IT guy like you in our organization. And I'd say to them, I need innovative teachers like you in my organization, right? Because I need, at the moment, I'm leading the charge for digital transformation, but then I walk into a senior leader meeting and it's kind of two things. One, I learned the hard way that I need to learn to speak teacher language. I need to learn to speak pedagogy. I need to learn to not talk about, because I used to always say, like, as an IT, as IT professionals, we're very guilty of we need £10,000 to replace this server. And so you go in, you deliver the business case. Well, we need to replace the server because the old server isn't assigning IP addresses, and so therefore we've run out of, and so the DNS isn't working, and because of that, that's why you can't connect to it. You've lost the senior leader, who's probably a teacher, right? You've lost them in that moment because it's like, what on earth have you just said? And you want me to fork out £10,000? Like, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen, right? Let's go buy some books instead. And it was that where it's like we need to stop looking at what it is that we want to buy. We need to stop looking at the devices and we need to start looking at it from an outcomes perspective. What is it that matters to you? What is it you're ultimately trying to achieve here, right? And when you look at it from a school perspective, it's teaching and learning, right? It's safeguarding, it's the grades, the meeting the needs for the regulatory requirements, right? Standardized testing, all of that stuff, right? Where does IT come into that in just those phrases, right? It doesn't really the first month. Yes, now we all know now the entire world relies on it, right? We've seen when Amazon AWS goes down, or when Google Cloud goes down, or Microsoft Azure goes down, the entire world stops for like that half an hour whilst they wait for the servers to reboot, right? But it's about getting people to understand that. And so I think my challenge was very much a pre-COVID challenge where it was very much no one was doing digital transformation because it's too difficult. We haven't got time for it. It's too expensive. And let's be honest, the way we do it at the moment in school, it works, right? So we don't want to go down this route of change that is a bit too hard. And then obviously COVID happened and kind of everyone was forced to suddenly embrace digital transformation. And even then, I say at that point, people at that point right now. We've got it happening in the Middle East right now with those countries having to go to remote learning, and it's a case of we need to be in a world now where, hopefully we never have a pandemic again, and hopefully we have peace in the world to the point where, schools are able to open normally. But at the same time, we have to be ready to transition at any point because we're always going to be at that uncertainty. And ultimately, it's the findings post-COVID, right, that has come out of why do we do digital transformation, right? And again, we're asking this question now in 2026 when guess what? You've got Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude and all of this new technology, right? It's just the same thing over and over, right? In a few years' time, we're going to have more new tech. What's the next big thing after AI and those kind of stuff. And that's why my challenge was very much trying to like, hey guys, I told you so, but we need to do this, right? We need to move with the times with the IT. We can't just keep running that PC and expect it to last for 10 years, right? We have to understand why we have to keep moving, right? And I know that change is hard, right? I say this all the time. Change is hard, absolutely. But when the government changes, the new education secretary comes in and makes a whole load of announcements, you haven't got a choice, but you change, right? You pick up that change because there's a consequence to if you don't embrace those changes, you're going to get into trouble for it. Well, why are we kicking our heels in when it comes to IT? Why we should be controlling the narrative. We've got the flexibility here to control the narrative. Let's control the pace of change so that it isn't as drastic, right? It isn't as extreme as then suddenly having to flip from in person to remote. And it's like, hey, I don't even know what is Zoom, what is Teams, what is Meet? Like, I don't even know what this works. And what's the mute button? Why can't you hear me? That kind of stuff, right? It's like that. That's what we sort of need to be ready for. Is a world where, let's face it, we're all reliant on technology in every single moment of our lives, and yet it's the fastest moving sector in the world. And yet, are we moving anywhere at the pace that we need to be, right? Even, I'm a self-proclaimed geek, right? I want to be at the forefront of it, but I can't afford to pay for the latest gadgets all the time. But at the same time, I need to keep on top of it. Like, you look at my YouTube history, and people look at my YouTube history and think, what on earth do you watch all day long? It's like, do you never stop with the tech? It's like, no, I'm sorry, I have to keep on top of this stuff because people are going to come to me and say, hey, have you heard about the new iPhone that's coming out? So did you know there was an iOS update? I need to be on top of this stuff because like that's my bread and butter, right? That's what ultimately pays the bills for me. And yeah, there's a whole lot of mental health challenges that comes with that. But but at the same time, it's the industry we're in, and it's moving at such a pace to a point where we that's ultimately where my challenge lied was. I understand we need to move at this pace, but it's how do we take everyone else on that journey with us? Because I'm not telling you you need to suddenly go at 100 miles per hour and make sure you're keeping on top of technology, but at least have the mindset and the understanding that this is something we should be doing, and this is something ultimately that we need to do, but let's get on top of it as opposed to having to constantly play catch up.
Yeah, wow. It's so cool because it seems like you have ended up exactly where you're supposed to be. And I always love seeing people that are doing what they're passionate about and what they love and like crazy succeeding at it. It brings me so much joy to like see that in people. And that is exactly what I see anytime I hear you speak, anytime I read any of your content or see your posts, especially at conferences. And you covered a lot of ground from your time in the academy. But what we kind of skimmed over is this global GEG that was born during that pandemic time. We kind of talked about pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, which is great and all the AI stuff. But there was this amazing moment in the middle of the pandemic when you were on the ground floor of this amazing global GEG movement. And I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit about like that moment when you realized like we need something bigger? We need to connect these teachers.
Post post academy, and I'm sure you guys will agree, is probably the worst feeling in the world, right? The Monday morning after the academy, when it's like you go back to your school and you've been through what I like to describe as the most amazing PD experience you've ever had in your life, multiplied by 10, sort of thing. And and you go back to school and no one understands why you are on cloud nine, so to speak. And for me, at that point, having suddenly gone from not knowing anyone outside of London to suddenly having friends around the world, right? Like people like I remember when I announced I've been selected for London 19, like my Twitter follow account just like, wow, who are all these people who are Google certified innovators? Like I didn't know there were other Google certified innovators in the world. Like what's going on? And I wanted to find my people. I needed that community. Like suddenly you've gone from 3 days of the most amazing people in one room who all just get it to you've gone back and it's like, right, okay, that was great. Back to work. And it's like, no, I can't do that. Like how? And so the social media connection went up a notch. And uh that's when I met a certain Stephanie Howell. Yeah, we were talking. What was it? Someone from the Innovator team posted um, a video of Dean Stokes, who was our host for London 19, singing Spice Girls "Wannabe" on the second day, and And what happened was some of the other innovator, also the other Innovator Academy that happened in 2019 prior to our one was Sydney 2019, which Stephanie Howell went to. And then suddenly all of the Sydney folks started replying to that tweet to say, hey, what's this? Like, our one was so much better and that kind of stuff. And then we had the hashtag epic Twitter battle between London 19 and Sydney 19. And so Stephanie Howell sent me a message and said, hey, would you like to be on our podcast? It's like, yeah, great. And so we connected from there. And then the rest of the 2019 cohorts, so immediately after us was Singapore 19, and then you had NYC, and then you had Sweden and Brazil as well. And so a few of us from well, there were six of us that kind of got together, myself, Stephanie Howe, Stephanie Rothstein, Bonnie Chalette, Louis Patuz, and Leslie Altman. And we all kind of just by chance fell into this group chat, and we were just connecting and we were just meeting, and just for a joke we kind of there were a few more innovators that joined that group, and we branded ourselves AWE20. We were the awesome 20 cohort because 2020 was going to be our year when we were going to like go and change the world sort of thing, right? We announced this back in November 2019. Little did we know. And so, but at the same time, that was happening, but that was still on Google Meet or Hangouts, as it was called then. And I was still looking for that local community. And so it's like, what's happening? What's happening in the Google world in local community? And it's like, well, have you heard of these things called GEGs? And it's like, nope, what's that? And it's like, do we have a GEG? Yeah, got GEG UK. It's like, what's happening with GEG UK? Nothing. And so it was like, okay, well, so I spoke to the previous owner and the previous leader for GEG UK, and he's like, yeah, no, I haven't got time, but more than welcome for you to. So I applied to be leader, and I was announced as leader for GEG UK in end of January, February sort of thing. And then obviously the world started to shut down. And so Steph Howell said to me that she's putting on this thing called EdTech Smackdown, right? Or she's putting on a Smackdown for her district. And she wanted me to be the person who, so it's a Smackdown is a, a session with where people come in and do 1 minute demo slams. And she said, but what I want you to do, Abid, is I want you to buzz them off once they hit the 1 minute, right? Because like they can't go over the 1 minute. And I'm like, yeah, cool, no problem. And so we announced that we're doing this, and then suddenly it's like Bonnie and Steph and all the others who had their own GGs in their region, they're like, yeah, we'd love to chip in with that and stuff. And so I designed just a graphic for EdTech Smackdown. And so then I put the GG UK logo, GG Ohio logo, GG NorCal logo, the GG South Louisiana logo, and the GG Sydney logo. And it's like, then once I put it on Twitter, we had more people message us, oh, could you put my GG? And then half the page became just GG logos. I'm like, this is just ridiculous, right? Why don't we just call it Global GG, right? And so I just like, I'm going to do it. I haven't asked anyone for permission. I haven't done that. It's just, let's just do it, right? Global GG. Because I'm like, we forget SmackDown. We just got GG logos on here, right? And so and they all joined to be presenters for EdTech SmackDown. And we didn't expect, and what it was, I'd never done a session like this. And I said to Steph, how many people are we going to have? Like 20, 30? She goes, no, we've got 2,000 people in our district. I'm like, you what? And somehow it turned out like me and her were the hosts, but she goes like, you're saying everything. I was so nervous, right? And as well, people don't believe it when I say to them now that what you see now, me, like the t-shirt I'm wearing right now, yeah, it's me, it's the A, B, I, and the D, right? Like that was not me at all. That was like I was the total introvert. I did not go out there. I did not talk to other people. I went to the rooms, I quietly sat at the back, listened to what had to be said and left, sort of thing. And I looked, I thought, this session is called EdTech Smackdown. We've got loads of people in it. We have two. And I was so nervous about talking. I was so nervous I had a stutter. I decided to write myself a script, and I read the script and I just thought, just this is boring. Like, I'm bored. I don't want to do this. I'm leading the session and I don't want to do it. And it's like, and I thought to myself, SmackDown, right? WWE, wrestling, like, come on, it needs to be engaging. It needs to be extravagant. So the night before SmackDown, I messaged Steph and I said to her, would you mind jumping on a call for a sec? Because I just want to run something by you. She's like, cool. So then she jumped on the call. And at the time I was living in a two-bedroom ground floor apartment. And my presentation studio was the edge of my bed. Like that was it. We had the living room where my family was. And I told Steph, look, Steph, I think this is a bit boring. It's not going to work. So I've decided to write myself a script. And I'm going to present this to you now, how I'm going to present it tomorrow. And I just want you to roll with it. Let me finish, and then I'll tell you, and then you tell me what you think. And so she was like, you're scaring me. I said, just let's do this, right? So I said, I'm gonna count three, two, one, right? All right. Three, two, one. And so it's like, yes, it's me, it's the A behind the D, and I'm here with Global GEG. And she's there laughing at my wife and girls ran into the bedroom. It's like, who the hell are you screaming at? Right? And she's just there laughing her head off, right? And so after about a minute, I stopped and I said to her, what do you think? And she's like, totally, you are doing that tomorrow. But we're not going to tell anyone you're doing that, right? So tomorrow came, the day of SmackDown. So we've got about 40 people on this Zoom call, right? Who are all ready to go, sort of thing. And the YouTube live chat was already quite busy. Um, and so we had a guy, Devin Rossiter, who was one of my fellow innovator buddies. He was our producer, and so he said, "Right, we're ready, everyone. I'm going to hand you over to our host, Stephanie Howe, and firstly, Abid Patel." And so everyone on the call who knew me was kind of like expecting "Hey, welcome to EdTech SmackDown, folks. We've got a great session, all that." No, I put the sunglasses on, and suddenly, like the persona, I call it the reverse Clark Kent. He takes the glasses off, I put the glasses on, and then the all I'm there half reading off a script, but at the same time, like just screaming my head off in on this call with like thousands of people on this YouTube live stream. All I'm seeing in the background is the YouTube chat is just scrolling faster than I've ever seen it scroll. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, in the same time, I can't tell you the amount of stuff that was going on in my head at the time. And it was an amazing session. It was the one that kicked everything off. And that's kind of where like the shock on the faces of the people in the Zoom call who were like, what on earth? And I went back after the session and read some of the messages in the YouTube chat, and it was kind of like, whatever Abid's drinking, I want it sort of thing. And it was literally that. And that session, that event is kind of what kicked off the Global GEG. And it was more a case of like, I'm doing a welcome to Google Classroom session. Someone else is doing a welcome to Gmail session. Someone else is welcome to Google Slides session. It's like we're all doing the same session, right? Why don't we just do one session and spread it out across? Who cares if you've got an American accent and you've got an Australian accent, I've got a British accent. Like at the end of the day, Google Drive is Google Drive, right? It's Gmail is Gmail. The tool is the same, right? That's what people need to know. And so we did it from a place to support each other, but we didn't expect the community that would come out of it. And the community was just amazing. And our leaders, the effort that they put in at one point in time, I remember, like, it's funny, you guys were joking about how late is it for you there? Like, there were times where like 2, 3 in the morning we were on call. We were like a 24/7 news channel at one point. We just had sessions going on around the clock because we were working at all time zones, right? And yeah, it was an amazing, yeah, through the horrible time of the pandemic, that was the shining light that got an awful lot of us through, because I realized I relied so much on that community that I developed in the last couple of years, and suddenly I'd lost all of that through the pandemic. And Global GG kept us all going in some way or another, and it was a really, really special time. And I really like to think it inspired others to pick up the mantelpiece from there.
So, okay, so funny story is I had just gotten into ed tech in probably like 2017, 2018. And then our district completely shut down, and we went to the space of everybody's one-on-one now. And there's teachers in our entire district who had never opened a computer in their classroom. And it's like now they have to do this thing. And so I was like, there's this thing, and I just saw it, and I've been like getting in all these spaces on Twitter and all these things. I was already Google certified. I already had like I think I don't even know at that point. Like I had gone through all of the process, and I was like, but I can't figure out how to engage teachers online, and I can't figure out how to keep things like community driven, right? And to try and get in the space where we still feel connected. Because if you're talking to a teacher and you're trying to share those things with them, they were just like it's a lot, like I have to do this, but I have to listen to you to figure out how to be supportive still and keep it student centered. And I remember you doing that and putting on the glasses, and I was there, and I was like, I'm going to go through every single thing that they are doing, and I'm just going to get into this headspace of like trainers training teachers and just being inspired to be able to take that back to my community. So from a personal perspective, I absolutely thank you on that. You also went into the virtual Innovator Academy, but you came in and I think you had a very unique experience in this space because then you stepped in as a coach. And so if you're not in an innovator space, or you don't or you're listening to this because you're interested in becoming a Google Innovator, when you do go to one of the academies, they have coaches who are previous innovators to help you through the whole process, right? And so now, not only did you do Global GEG, and then now there's a pandemic and it's a unique type of Innovator Academy, now you're stepping up to be a coach. So tell us a little bit about that experience and where that went.
So yes, so to be a coach, you need to have completed your innovator project. And my innovator project was It Just Works, which is now my business. But at the time, what came out of the academy was I wanted to put on this event. And post academy, still pre-COVID, it was very much, how am I going to put on this event? How am I going to invite people to the event? Who's going to want to come to my event? Where am I going to get the money from? How am I going to feed people? I was panicking. Like, this is one of those innovative projects that's just going to fall off the wayside, because in my mind, I'm putting too many mental barriers to be able to do it. And if anything, COVID made it so much easier because no one was going to any events. I didn't have to feed people. I didn't have to worry about that. And yeah, I hosted it. It Just Works. Everyone from Global GEG chipped in. I had some wonderful fellow Global GEG leaders come in to demonstrate how they were doing digital transformation, and completed my project. Literally about 3 days later, I got an email from the Innovator program to say, "Hi, Abid, would you be free to jump on a call at some point to discuss coaching for VIA 20?" And it was just like, what? Like, what? I literally just finished 3 days ago. Like, is this for real? And what's funny was the AWE 20 group that we started actually started out, its first name was called Future Innovator Coaches, because we wanted to go back to an Innovator Academy, right? Because once you've done the Innovator Academy, you can't go back as an innovator. You have to, the only way you go back is as a coach. And so we're like, we're the ones who want to go back to an Innovator Academy as a coach. And so I ended up the first person being selected to be a coach. And already it was so this was the first virtual Innovator Academy. So it was a very different experience, right? It was like all of us coaches on the academy, and it was a huge academy because it was a purely a truly global academy. You had like three different time zones as well. So you had the APAC time zone and EMEA time zone, and then the America LATAM time zone. And so you had the same design sprint sessions and the mentor sessions, and then even the sparks as well. You had the each repeated every week three times at those different sessions. And then you had innovators from all around the world, you had coaches from all around the world. And so suddenly I'm thrown into another group chat, right, of people who've been there, done that, and that connection. But it's also, right, how is this going to work? Like, none of us, not even the innovator program, right? It was that no one knew how this was going to work because like it's only ever been done in person. How is it going to look virtually? And um yeah, that was a really I still say like for me nothing beats the in-person experience, but at the same time VIA 20 was a really special academy. Like the in-person experience is 3 days of like solid non-stop energy, passion, you name it. And then after 3 days you're done. VIA 20 went on for 8 weeks. Yeah, yeah, there's a whole lot of breaks in between where, you have your sessions and then you go back to work, blah blah blah. Next week, back to the session, that kind of thing. And then we had in the middle, we had the first ever 24-hour Spark camp. So it was just 24 hours of Sparks from innovators from around the world. I did one where making
Whoa.
we were making Indian tea, Stephanie Howell and I, because Stephanie didn't know how to make tea at the point
It
where
was
we
like
had
a
this.
full marathon of 24
Yeah,
hours.
24 hour, yeah, 24-hour Spark camp.
And you
So
could just
from
like
like,
tune in.
yep, you could just jump into any Spark. So there was a Google Sheet with all of the meet links. Everyone had 20 minutes, and there were multiple languages as well. So you had like different language streams, but you could just jump on to any Spark that you wanted to. We had origami, we had coffee making, we had someone doing smoking meat. Like
Oh my gosh. And
it
it's
was,
during COVID. So you have time to
it was
do all of these
yeah,
things.
we
You
had
have a whole
yeah,
day to smoke
and
meat.
and it was on a weekend as well. So it literally started midnight on Saturday and then finished on midnight or just before midnight on Sunday morning.
Oh, that's so cool.
So so yeah, it was such an amazing experience. And again, it just like I think what was so special about VIA 20 is it opened up the Innovator Academy to so many, it became so much more accessible for people who can't make it to in-person academies. And I think that's why it's continued, right? It's continued since then. We've got two VIA academies happening this year, and I think that's what was amazing. I mean, there was one innovator from Africa who the innovator program actually bought him a 5G dongle to use because he couldn't get a stable internet connection. And so it's like, that's only going to cost us what, $20 or whatever. Like, let's just send it through to him, sort of thing. And I think those kind of really special, it's such a tiny thing for us, you guys, we just go to our local gadget store and pick up a dongle, right? It's
Right.
it's not no biggie for us, right? And it was those kind of things that just opened our eyes to like, wow, like when you go to your local academy, most people are from your local area. Yes, I had a huge US contingent, but again, we were very privileged, right? I think VIA was the first academy that kind of opened our eyes to, right, what we're doing is not innovative in any means compared to what they're doing. They're living in war zones. They've got like one Chromebook between 300 pupils and stuff, and yet you watch what you do and you just think, oh my gosh, like what am I doing here? Like this is the epitome of innovation, what these guys are doing. And I think that's what really made VIA 20 so special is just being able to just see what was happening across the world, but also connecting with so many more people at such a grand scale. and an 8-week Innovator Academy, to be involved in that, involved with the energy, because yeah, all of us have been through the in-person experience, but they'd never done that, right? So for them, like, I was just looking at the passion. They were so excited for a virtual academy, right? And it's just because they'd seen our excitement and energy, and for them that was it, right? They wanted, and I'd jump on, I'd we as a coach, I only had to go to my design sprint for my time zone and my mentor sessions and my Spark sessions. I went to all of them. I went to every time zone and stuff. Watched the whole thing. Like, Abid, you've already been, haven't you, this week? And I'm like, yep. No, it's just the same thing, right? I'm like, yep, no problem. Like,
Back again. Here I am.
and
Put your
that's what it
sunglasses
was.
on.
And this, and yeah, and we were at home. It's like, I've got nothing better to do, right?
Right.
And that's what it was about. It was just about just living that experience. I think it was so, so special. And yes, I would love to go to another academy as a coach. Really hoping out for this year. But yeah, really special experience. And I cannot stress enough, like, if you haven't been to an academy yet, get your application in, because it is life changing. And you can't explain how life changing it is until you've been through that experience. But honestly, like, when I before I did my academy in April 2019, that's when I became the IT director for my multi-academy trust. That role, the title, IT director, right? For me, that was the cherry on top, right? That was the highest level I was going to achieve. For me, I've done it, right? I was only in my mid-30s at the time, and already I've achieved IT director. There's nowhere to go from this, right? It wasn't until those 3 days in the academy where I realized how small my thinking was. Just before joining the academy, it was like, I've done it, right? IT director, cool. I'll just sit back and, you know, do the digital transformation day in, day out, make sure the printers are working, everything's turned off and on again, sort of thing. Job done. And it was only once I left the academy where it's like, wow, like, how tiny was my thinking and how massive is the world out there, right? How many people have I got to see? One of the things that I saw about, what thought about after the academy was, like, all these amazing friends that I've made stateside. When am I ever going to get to see them again? And so then they're like, well, you could come over to the conference, ISTE. And I'm like, what's ISTE? And is it like Bet? Yeah, it's similar. I was like, okay, cool. How am I going to afford to pay for but at that time, it was the mindset had changed so much, where if you told me pre-Innovator Academy that I'd be spending £2,000 of my own money to go to a work conference, I would have told you need to get your head screwed on, right? Post Academy, I was like, I don't care what it costs, I'm going there, right? And it was that, and I just thought, I need to make this happen, right? I was devastated when ISTE got cancelled in 2020. And then I got ended up getting long COVID. I couldn't go in 2021 or 2022, whatever it was, 2023. And so 2024, I was like, right, 2024, this is going to be my one and done, right? It's going to cost me a lot of money. I'm going to go to ISTE, Denver, going to get it out of my system, say hello to all of my friends again, and then come back, and then we'll be back to normal. And I went to ISTE for the first time in 2024. And now I'm going to my third ISTE this year in Orlando. It's like, you
Yay.
know,
Hey, hopefully we'll see you there.
it's that thing where it's just those experiences, the Innovator Academy, that community building, the virtual academy, all of that, the effect that it has in changing your mindset in the way of the direction of where you're going, and the art of the possible, right? It's where the 10x idea, the 10x mindset comes from, is you're thinking one time, you're thinking about what I have to do tomorrow, what's in my email inbox, what's on my task list, right? What that innovator mindset is what is possible that you haven't even thought of yet.
Wow, you are such an incredible. I'm just like leaning in. You're such a great storyteller. And Tina and I had kind of like made a little list of questions and things we wanted to ask you, and you have just explained everything. But every little story you tell, I feel like I'm just like, uh-huh, uh-huh, me too. Because I would spend as much as it costs to go to ISTE to hang out with everybody. And to like it's not it's the people, it's the learning, it's the energy, and you've gone from the cupboard to student in the academy to professor in the academy, and and now you have this incredible business, this incredible like global impact. And I admire you so much. And I think so many innovators can connect to what you're saying about that spark that's ignited when you're in the room with people, but then also the perspective that you gained from that virtual academy. And the fact that, like you said, this year there are two of them, and it's just opening those doors for people who aren't going to spend their own money to go and stay at the hotel or to travel to get there, or that can't, or that aren't close by, or it's not safe. And now they have this opportunity. So I am certainly inspired by everything you said. And just like Tina, I was a big fan of all of the content produced during COVID. I'm really sad I missed that epic spark. That was part of the virtual Innovator Academy, right? That wasn't Global GEG, the 24-hour
No,
Spark Marathon.
a Spark Camp. I'm pretty sure they'll have something similar this year for the VIAs. So yeah.
That's so amazing. And
Hmm.
I mean, it was so good, like so perfect for COVID too, because if in 24 hours you could tune in and get 20 minutes of all different things that you could do with all of the time you had, I think that it's so googly. Like it's perfect. It's exactly what was needed at the time. So before we totally wrap things up, while we have you, is there anything big that you have coming up that you want the listeners to know about? Ways that they can follow you or interact with your content?
Yeah, I've set up my website. My website is abidpatel.com. That's where it's got all of my links on there, so you can absolutely connect with me on there. So please do connect with me. At the moment, I am building my consultancy. It just works. I'm going out there to support schools. Yeah, I've got lots of exciting stuff coming up with conferences. I've got a few conferences here where I'll be speaking, and then back to Orlando for ISTE. Really excited for that. We are doing our second in-person SmackDown. So last year was our first in-person SmackDown. I've got a lot to learn. I've learned a lot from that first in-person SmackDown experience. So we're really excited for that. So if you'd like to be a presenter at SmackDown and do the 1 minute demo slam, please do get in touch with me. I was shocked last year. Someone in the ISTE team obviously must have seen SmackDown. They gave us a ballroom and we had about 750 people in that. I think I'm estimating we might have even had more in that room, and it was just and you know I put on the glasses and I switched the persona. I was the ABI and the D. I had someone from the ISTE organization team come from the ballroom next door. And it's like, could you maybe tone it down a bit? Because like, and I had a friend who was in the other session, and they're like, a few of us started murmuring to say, we're we're going to that one because it sounds interesting. And yeah, so yeah, we're going to be putting on EdTech Smackdown again in Orlando this year, so I'm really excited for that. And yeah, just really excited for a few projects that I've got in going on. And please do reach out if you're wherever you are in the world, whether you're in the UK or anywhere like that. I'm support doing what my innovator project was, supporting schools with digital transformation, with cybersecurity, with navigating the digital world as it is now with all of the things that are happening. So yeah, absolutely. I'm just excited to work with more schools and more educators and just navigate that digital space.
Thank you so much. I was, like I said, we were very excited that you had signed up to come talk to us because your experience is so unique and so like impactful across so many different places. So if you are, to our listeners, someone who, if this conversation has pushed your thinking and sparked a brand new idea, or you had that imposter syndrome, go ahead and put it in the comments. I think one of the biggest parts is if you are someone who wants to become an innovator, think about applying, because Abid literally came from starting his career in a cupboard closet to making this huge impact. If you go around, check out his socials, because he's pretty much everywhere. Just go for it and give it a try. Keep thinking bigger, keep building all of those connections, make everything as big as possible. And remember to stay connected, stay inspired, and keep it unscripted.